Hello, lovelies. So I'm going to share something difficult right now. And I was actually considering that whether I should share this or maybe I should not. But I came to the realization that if I'm going to talk about boundaries in my free event, and I noticed from conversations with other moms and with those who signed up for the free event, and not only that the toughest boundaries for us to set are not those with the kids. We can usually deal with that. We can usually tackle that somehow. It's usually someone from our environment, another adult, and especially with someone who is dear to our heart. And I had that experience too. And especially that was with my mom. And I know in our generation, it is usually the relationship with our mothers that is the hardest to navigate for many of us. So hear me out, and um, this is a light at the end of the tunnel for some of you, I hope, um, because some 3 years ago, I was on my healing journey deep enough to start noticing that the way my mom addressed me and spoke to me wasn't 100% what I wanted for myself. And I know I'm not blaming her because that's also part of her past and her experience, and she did her own share of healing, and she did quite a good job considering where she came from. But still, it wasn't what I wanted for myself. And when I started noticing that, I felt bad within. Because if she claims to love me, why is she treating me like that? So I remember three situations over those past 3 years. One was in the car with my kids at the back. My mom was sitting next to me, I was driving. And she said something about my husband, something like we were just talking, and I said something that I wanted something done, it wasn't done, and she said something about my husband, a remark. And I like, kids are listening. I don't want someone to talk about my husband in that way, especially when the kids are listening, because it's not okay to speak about anyone in that way. And I don't want to model that to my kids. And I don't want anyone to model that to my kids. So I tried to turn it into a joke. I said something about her romantic success. She's divorced. And my message was that I am, like, right now, like, I'm with my husband since 2008. Since 2008. So we have quite a long relationship right now, and quite happy, to be honest. Um, so she is not someone I feel taking relationship advice from. But she didn't even notice the boundary that I was trying to set in that gentle, jokingly way. So the next situation was um, during a family gathering. I have two brothers. One of my brothers has a girlfriend, the other one has a wife and one child. I have two kids. And my husband wasn't there. I don't remember if he was sick or working on that day. So I was there with two kids who would go to me with everything. My one brother was with his wife and a kid. So there were two people for one kid. And my little brother was just sitting there. My mom asked me to take photos because it was like the first situation since the beginning of the pandemic when she could see all of her grandkids. So I totally understand. She wanted to have the photos from that situation, from that family gathering. But what triggered me was when I finally sat down, because I had two kids. I had to tend to both of them. They were little. My youngest was one. Um, And I was alone with the kids, and still she wanted me to take the photos. Like, why didn't she even ask one of my brothers, especially the one who doesn't have kids, who was just sitting there, and he had a much better phone with a better camera than mine. Anyway, I sat down to eat something. Then she arrived from the kitchen. She was running around between the kitchen and the dining room, not even sitting with us. And she said, take photos, don't stop taking photos. And I was like, okay, but I want to have some rest too. So she stormed off from the dining room into the kitchen, crying out that she always does everything for everyone and nobody does anything for her. And I was flabbergasted. I had no idea how to respond to that. Like, I was actually trying to take the photos for her. I was trying to take care of my own kids at the same time, while two of my brothers were just sitting there. They had nothing to do. So that was the first situation when I actually felt a really deep need to start setting those boundaries, not mentioning the one in the car before, but this one was actually when I started consciously realizing what I'm feeling when she's treating me that way. So the next family gathering, I don't know if it was a year after that, or I think it might be a year after that, or a couple of months at least. I was already subconsciously looking for those instances when she steps on my boundaries. So that was, maybe I was like anticipating something, an attack, and getting defensive. But sometimes if people, especially if you're in your 30s and you have never set any boundaries with someone, they won't accept your boundaries at first. They will think it's just like one-off situation. But actually, I did that time and time again. It came to the moment that whenever she acted in a way that diminished my value, I would just stand up, dress my kids, and leave. And one situation like that, I got up, dressed my kid, because my mom again did something, and it wasn't her fault. She did it subconsciously. I dressed my kids, dressed myself, and left. And then my brother talked to my husband, my younger brother, the one who doesn't have kids. He said something like, I'm overdoing it, I'm exaggerating. And my husband said something that I really appreciated his support in that endeavor, because he said, if someone steals from you once, you won't let them near your backyard anymore. So maybe that I was a little bit too heightened at some point, but in the end, after overdoing it for some time, there came a moment that we didn't talk for a couple of months, and I was thinking whether it will ever go back to a better state. But I finally felt good in my body. I felt good with how I was treated by others, without one person who would mistreat me in some ways. And I'm very proud of both of us, of me and of my mom, because right now, after another couple of months, I have never had a better relationship with her. Never. In my childhood, in my youth, in my 20s, there was always something that felt quite too tense between us. And right now, this is the first year that I can say that I have really a good, clear, and loving relationship with my mom. So even if it may feel like a wrong thing to do, and people, especially those who have watched that relationship for many years, like my brothers, they grew up and they saw the way we were all, I don't know, maybe she doesn't treat them that way. I didn't try to notice that. However, I certainly felt like she always tried to control and diminish my value, whatever we did together, until I started setting those boundaries. So when she tried to use like emotional manipulation, and I know she does it subconsciously, she did, because she doesn't do that anymore. Maybe she reconsidered some things. She actually felt that, okay, maybe I'm right. And I know my mom did her own share of healing, as I said before, and that was what I actually hoped for, because at some point I realized you cannot change another person, and people around certain age, it's really hard. I'm not saying she's old, because she's not, but there are certain things that some people cannot or are not willing to change. And if they're not willing to change, we cannot force them. So I stood in front of the crossroads, and one way was not having a mom in my life, and the other was just accepting who she was and the way she treated me, and just staying persistent in a way I want to set the boundaries with her. And if she treated me the wrong way, the way I didn't accept, just do the boundary. And the boundary isn't what you expect someone else to do, because you cannot control other people. The boundary is what you do when they don't act in a loving and respectful way towards you. So if someone does something to you and you decide to set a boundary is something you do when you are not treated the way you expect to be. So this is the story of my boundary with my mom. It wasn't that hard, actually. I was very, it wasn't easy to present this, because this is one of the relationships that I feel very close to my heart. And I really wish everyone listening to this, that this will light this light at the end of a tunnel, when you have someone in your life who constantly steps over your boundaries, that they may do their own share of healing, and they may finally accept you for who you are and stop treating you the way they do, stop diminishing your value, and stop controlling and manipulating. Because it is possible, even for a boomer mom. So I will be sharing more about boundaries in my free 3-day mini course this weekend, starting this Sunday. So I will drop the link in the comments below this video if you want to sign up, and it's totally worth it. Hope you have a great day. Bye bye.